an alignment out of an existing urban fabric, and that will require, frankly, a great number of acquisitions and relocations. And what we wanted to do is to walk through that for you, give you just a general gestalt, if you will, of what that entails. This is probably not the time to talk about individual parcels or acquisitions, because the board will see those in actual actions that will come before you. And related to this, probably there's on the order of this project, there's on the order of 50 of those that the board will see over the years ahead. And most of those will be fairly front-loaded over the next couple of years. And I'll go through that a little bit more. I'm joined by Dave Unsworth, who will be piloting an aircraft that will fly over the alignment to give you this view of our right-of-way requirements. But I did want to just sort of punctuate, if you will, a little bit about the size of this program. The total value of the right-of-way program for Portland-Milwaukie is $210 million. That includes about 139 different acquisitions. Some of those are full, some of those where they take everything on the site, on the parcel, others are partial, what we call partial. The details are broken down on that sheet that's in front of you. There's really, they've broken it down on the sheet into two pieces. One is the linear alignment from downtown Portland to the Park Avenue terminus in Clackamas County. And then the other part is the actual expansion of the Ruby Junction maintenance facility and the Gresham vicinity. And those, there are property acquisitions associated with both of those. Just to also note that we follow quite religiously the handbook called Uniform Acquisition Guidelines and Relocation Guidelines that are established by the federal government. So there's a very precise process procedure, which interestingly is not intended to get the agency the best price. The intent of it is to be fair and to provide fair compensation to property owners. And we do follow those quite religiously, and I think, as you know, while we've occasionally had to ask the board for condemnation authority, and I'm sure in this list of acquisitions we will need to do that, we have rarely ever had to use the full condemnation procedure. And nearly always, as a matter of fact, I can say on the last project, always ended up with willing seller, willing buyer negotiations. So we worked very hard on that. But in addition to those sort of strict federal guidelines, we do go above and beyond the call, if you will, of those letter of the law requirements to make sure that these acquisitions and relocations, particularly the relocations of businesses, go well, that we move a business, if we need to move a business, that stays strong, that they know exactly what the costs and, if you will, issues are associated with the relocation. So to that end, we have supporting contracts with the Portland Development Commission, which is also helping look for example, alternative sites or other loan programs that might be available throughout the city or the region to assist those businesses. We also have a working agreement with a contract with PSU's School of Business. And in many cases, what that provides is, for example, business plan assistance to entities that may have a relocation issue, or and what we want to do, obviously, make them as strong as they can possibly be in the situation that we're causing. I just wanted to also note that this is a very different, if you will, family of customers that we'll be dealing with here. And our past projects, while the numbers have been relatively small, I'll give you some examples. Probably Interstate and the downtown mall are issues that are really helping small businesses, retail businesses for the most part. In this case, these are small industrial manufacturing firms, so it's a very different, if you will, client base that we're dealing with, and so we're trying to tailor this program to that particular client base. Just to the statistics, as I mentioned, Portland-Milwaukie is about a $220 million program, 139 acquisitions. By points of comparison, the West Side project, which was probably comparable in total size, was actually a $41.5 million acquisition program. Many more acquisitions, 559, but lower value and smaller in general impact, if you will, than I think what we may see to the individuals. When you add up the airport, the 205 project, commuter rail, the 205 and the project and the mall project, we had a total of $39 million worth of acquisitions
present value of those?
It would still be, the one that I would probably present value, probably need to double actually, would be the West Side program. And so we're still about half the size of the Portland-Milwaukie project.
How much of that is attributed to the railroad?
Probably round number 10%.
How much?
10%. Not over, but you'll see the large parcels, but much of the parcels that provide are unimproved, so the value is not quite as high as you see in many others. So again, one of the issues here is there's a lot, but there's also the size and the complexity of the acquisitions are different than we have seen in the past, and that's one of the other reasons we have the assistance report development commission. Also, by the way, the state economic development department is looped in, as well as Portland State. And there are some examples, which I won't go through specifically, of sort of some of the more complex acquisitions. We can touch on them if we have a moment at the end. What I was hoping we could do is actually let Mr. Unsworth pilot through the actual alignment, so you can begin to see the scope and
the alignment's set, right?
I'm sorry?
The alignment is set.
Well, the alignment was set, right, with the adoption of the local preferred alternative, which was, of course, by us and all the other jurisdictions, including Metro, over a year ago.
Before they go there, can I, on that 61 businesses and 12 residents, do you see that number going up, or is there any opportunity for it to go down?
There is some marginal opportunity, I think, for it to go down in a couple of special cases that we'll look at. And that, it's a good point, because as we go through the final engineering and we get down to the very fine pencil lines, if you will, we look for opportunities to reduce the impact. Number one, to reduce the impact, but number two, reduce the cost. So we try to be, at this stage of the game, a little broad in our spread, but we'll fine-tune that as the project progresses. Dave?
Yeah, and I would say two things. One, public process, the amount of public process that we've done on securing alignment, people telling us this is the location, has been through a couple environmental impact statements. Right now, these numbers are really for disclosure. As part of the environmental document, we got to raise our hand and say there's a potential worst case, this is the numbers that we're at. So that really fits with what Neil said. So I'm going to pilot you through. You don't need seat belts, but do know that there are there are exits on both sides. So,
let me ask you a quick question, Neil, before you start.
Yes.
What does it mean, 210 million at 25% design?
Yeah.
Well, that is, again, sort of the process that Dave was talking about, which is that we clearly don't have final design, but we have progressed it to 25%. And by the end of next month, we'll be at a 30% milestone, which is, I think as we've mentioned before, is when we apply to the federal government for the next step in the project development sequence, which is final design. So that's as far as we'll take it, really, for this calendar year, and launch.
One other question, Greg. All the parties that will be impacted have been notified.
Yes, at numerous times. And we have, by the way, I should have noticed, we have staff from our community relations department in a Redwood, raise your hand, who have been in this, who have been in those conversations over the life of the project. And it starts at the very, when there are a number of alternatives, we talk to everybody about there are different alternatives, you might remember by this one, and then it narrows down to a more specific conversation as the jurisdictions adopt the actual approval.
This particular point, George, is where the problems first began to surface on the tram, where they're making their estimates based on percentage. But this is where, Neil, I've always felt incredibly comfortable with the work that you and your team do in that regard, because you're experienced, you're veterans of this, and that I know we wouldn't be looking down the barrel of a tram.
I know I would not be here.
Then one final question, and then we're going to get to the 61 businesses and 12 residents, because I'm piggybacking on something that George said. It's all included in that 25% design, because when you said you get out to 30, 35, 40, that's not going to be any impact on this side.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, other than it may come down a little bit.
Yeah.